Welcome back to Rooted, where we become more rooted in our faith and growing in community. This is episode 10 of the Rooted series, and we are still in the Grit series. This is week 10, and your sermon title, Pastor Mark, was Let's Do This Together. And so I have Pastor Mark with us today, and Pastor Angel with us today, and Eric Brick with us today. And
I think we need to introduce Angel, though, because this is Angel, this is your first time on,
this
isn't
is
it?
his second.
See,
Yeah.
That's all right. It's fine. You were gone.
You were gone
I
that
was
week.
away.
Yep.
You were.
And when I break, I break.
Yeah. As you should.
When I'm away, I'm away.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
well, hopefully you introduced who Angel is and how he's at the Bethany campus. So
did,
I
yeah.
love this today because you've got the representation of who we are, not only in a building, but who we are, the representation of Emmanuel at different locations
That's
with
right.
Chrisfield and Bethany. So
Yeah.
great to have you today, Eric. Great to have you today, Angel.
Thank you, sir.
And
Thank you.
speaking of angels,
Oh, goodness.
Hey, now.
hello, beautiful
now.
bride of mine.
Come on.
See what I did there? I
Oh,
like
my
that.
goodness. You just wanted to take over so you could end there, huh?
There we go.
There
As
you go.
should. As you should.
Back to you.
Back to me. All right. So this week, it was all about community. And we started with your shoes and how much you love shoes. So I just want to know, do we have any other shoe lovers in the room?
Oh, you know where that conversation is going to go. That's a big
I'd love
yes.
to hear it.
Yes.
Yes.
Eric, that was a
Okay.
weak yes from someone who I know loves a good shoe
Yes,
game.
give us a little bit of
I
context to that. Yeah. Give us a little bit more.
I don't know. I love just comfortable pairs of shoes.
Okay.
And if I like a pair of shoes, like I'll wear them till they fall off my feet, basically. Yeah, my mom used to buy me like new shoes all the time.
Okay.
And she would be like, just wear your new shoes. I was like, why? I have comfortable shoes
Warm
that I
in.
love, and I'm just going to continue wearing them. But yeah, so that love has continued, and got a couple pairs at home. Just a couple. I don't have too much
Okay.
because they are expensive,
They are.
and I don't like buying them off of those websites.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I'm not going to mention any names. I promise. I'm not going to mention any names on this website. But there have been a staff member or two who like to buy and sell shoes. They buy unique shoes that are pretty cool looking and then turn around and flip the shoes. Very smart idea. That's how much people love their shoe game around here.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like it's pretty interesting
Yeah.
to say the least.
It's a perfect side hustle.
What about
It
you,
is.
Angel?
For me, my wife can attest for sure. Shout out to Kelsey. I've got a little bit of a collection. I've been very fortunate enough to be gifted with a few pairs of shoes myself,
Okay.
which I'm very grateful for sure. And I actually do have a pair of real Yeezys sitting in my closet
Oh my.
that I got myself as a end of summer pat on the back type of gift to myself. Because
Okay.
every once in a while, you've got to just
Splurge and spoil.
a little bit, not too much where it's, jumping in over your head. But yeah, so it's funny. But I loved your Feezies. Up there.
Feezies.
The
Feezies.
Feezies up there on stage, man. They honestly, it's the smarter route to go.
It
for
is.
sure.
Yeah.
Shout out to Pastor Jake for that.
Come on.
There you go.
Come
yeah,
on.
I love a good pair of shoes, as I said Sunday. Particularly the cheap shoes. Like I love Vans are very stylish and affordable.
Yep.
So that's why I like
Right.
Vans.
Yeah.
I love it.
Sarah, you?
Well, fun fact about me, my first ever job
Yep.
was at the shoe department, which still
Hey.
exists in the mall.
Hey.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I started that job at 16, and my parents thought it was a great idea because I love shoes,
Right.
but I don't need expensive shoes. Like that's not
Right.
important to me. I
Right.
just like shoes.
Good looking pair of shoes.
So,
yeah.
Doesn't matter
Yeah.
how, cheap would be good.
Cheap would be well, and now that we have 5 kids, cheap is always good.
Cheap
They
is always
they end
great.
up
Amen.
they end up with the expensive shoes.
They do. And I'm like, how is this happening?
So anyway, I love that you started there with that illustration, and I'm amazed every week how you do this and take an illustration that I'm like, where in the world is he going to go with this? And moved from your fake Yeezys and how this is how we approach church and what the church is. We've fallen for fake. and just how, sometimes people think that the church is the programs or the worship or the music, the pulpit, and that those are all of the representations, and they are all a part of the church. But ultimately, the foundation of every form of ministry is the fellowship, and that's where you went from Hebrews 10:19 through 25, and how important the fellowship of believers is. And you took us to Acts 2, which is where the birthday of the church happened,
Right.
which I thought was awesome. But yeah, I mean, I'll open up with this question. Why do you think that we fall for fake in the church? Why, in the culture that we live in today, why do you think that happens? What is it that has driven us to that?
Oh, there's so much to say on that. I don't know if I want to start there.
We'll let somebody else start then.
I will.
Well, I think we live in an Instagram, Snapchat, quick fix type of culture. So, and honestly, there's a lot of good that comes from an outward appearance that does draw people, especially whether you like it or not, in a consumeristic culture.
Right.
So using that for good is a good thing. Like, shout out to our social media team and
absolutely.
the avenues that we take to engage everyone everywhere. However, there's a lot of people that once expectations aren't met because they place it up against what they saw on Instagram or what they saw, for a brief moment. And once those expectations aren't met on a deeper level,
Right.
they're like, all right, I'll just go try the next one and see what happens. But that's just what I've seen, in my generation. And it's something that's running rampant in, other generations as well, I would say, is a big part of it.
Yeah.
I would agree with that, but even in that, I've seen places that have these grand social medias and great presence online and all this superficial stuff, even in the building. But once you get to the core, once you get involved or deep into, that kind of all fades away.
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
not like super sustainable, and they don't necessarily work so much on the inside stuff as much as they care about the outside stuff. So that's where it kind of, you lose people kind of that way, where you work so much on the superficial, on what others see, that on the inside, that kind of is all rotting and it's not looking good, or it's fake and not of the proper materials that it needs to be.
Right. I think some of it is because the church has actually done it to itself. In an attempt to become more appealing to people, we've become attractional. There's nothing wrong with being in an attractional church, because people need to see that there's something different about us. But you can't cookie cutter it to the point where you fluff it with no substance, and it just becomes about come and see, but not who Christ is trying to make you out to be.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And so some of it we've done to ourselves. We've set it up this way to become attractional, to get people in, and we'll cater to you, and we'll make this experience for you. But then it's like a bait and switch. But Christ says, carry your cross. You know what I mean? Die to him daily and live for him. And it's kind of like, hold up, that's a whole lot different than the free coffee mug I get outside. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think the church has really done it to itself. And then I know your question's probably like, well, then why does the church do it? Why do we have lights, and why do we have the sound, and why do we do all these things? Because there's also a group that looks at what we do. Oh, well, that's just attractional. That's just on surface level. That's not. Well, no, it's okay for the church to do things on a level of excellence.
Absolutely.
Everything you should do should be of a level of excellence. So that's why we do all of these things, is to present it with a level of excellency as well we should.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, it comes down to being a follower of Jesus in your everyday life, and being in fellowship with one another, growing with one another. That's really what it's boiled down to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I think too that community is just not a thing in this world and culture we live in anymore.
Right.
I mean, you think back to years and years and years ago, you did everything, and still there's many cultures across the world that still live this way, where community is such a big part of everything that they do.
Right.
A lot of families generationally live in the same house, and you have your tribe or your village that you are a part of, and community is a part of everything that they do. In the United States, we don't live that way.
Right.
There's just a brokenness to the whole concept of community. We do everything via social media platforms and don't really live in real relationship with people anymore.
Well, two
And
reasons. So I'm sorry to
Go ahead.
Well, two reasons to that
Yeah.
I actually wrote down, because
Yeah.
I know that will probably come up in this conversation, is exactly what Angel hit on, is the social media aspect. Social media, the engagement to be or to see what is happening out there and actually be connected to more people actually leaves you more disconnected,
Yeah.
more depressed, more alone.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why we have such a disconnected people from community, is because of the social media aspect. I mean, even now,
Right.
there are so many people that say, well, I can watch church from a distance. And, all those things are great avenues and forms of watching it online. That's amazing. I think it's really good to provide that opportunity,
Right.
but
Right.
you still need people.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You cannot be socially distanced. We've got to be socially connected.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think social media has prohibited us from being able to really be connected in community. The other thing, too, I see, I'm sure you guys can all attest to, we're, 4.5 years removed from COVID, but COVID really did a number
Yep.
on us that
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
still think that we're seeing the effects of how it affects
Yep.
community.
Right.
Yeah.
In our young people, even in our adults, just everything changed from that point moving forward, and I don't think we've quite even recovered from some of that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you said that our grit requires community, so I thought that was, we need people, and so your first point was to spur one another on, and before that you talked about our connection. I love how you use the cross, that our
Yeah.
connection with God and our connection with others, and how important when we understand our connection with God, then we can better be in fellowship with people. And you said, if you aren't connected to people, you probably aren't connected well with God, and how both are needed in order to walk this spiritual journey. So just on that thought, how has community impacted your spiritual walk?
Yeah.
So it's not just the connection with God, but connection with others. What does that look like in your spiritual walk?
I would say community for me is a big part of my testimony, as in I can remember the type of community I had growing up, and how that, as much as I wanted to love the Lord with all my heart and serve him, and wanted to, be in church and be involved, the community I had surrounded myself with wasn't really about that. So as much as I wanted to still hang out with them and still, do whatever they did, they would drag me with them, and I would allow myself to be dragged with them, to where it started affecting my relationship with the Lord tremendously. So once I was able to remove myself from that and find true community that loved Jesus and just wanted to serve him, that's when it changed completely for me, because there were people next to me that wanted to grow, that wanted to serve the Lord, that wanted to reach the lost. And so that became almost like a spark in my own personal spiritual life that was able to just push me forward, and has led to so many great things, even today. How important that community is, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's such a special moment, I feel like, in everybody's life where, wherever you may grow up, and it's very different for people who maybe grew up traveling with their family, like moving from place to place and having to kind of just adapt to different communities. But for myself, I had the privilege of growing up and going to school all throughout, kindergarten through high school in the same area. So a lot of my friends were basically just like, I grew up with them. So we were friends all the way through high school. But at the moment that I went off to college, that was like my first opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to choose my community.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a choice.
Right.
Who do I want to surround myself with? And I've heard so many times, and take it as you will, but I've heard pastors say, show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are in a place like maybe I was, where I felt a really compelling call into a life truly surrendered to Jesus, which looks different for many different people, but saying, I want to walk this thing out,
Yeah.
I have to make a choice. Do I want to be surrounded by a community that is going to spur me on?
Yeah.
And I think of Ecclesiastes in chapter 4, I believe. It says, pity the one who falls alone. So as we are in this journey together, there's going to be opportunities for us to fall. But if we're falling alone, pity that man that falls alone, because where there are two together, they can be stronger. And so choosing that community for myself was a turning point for me of saying, these are the people I want to be around, because they'll build me up for sure.
Right. Yeah.
And Angel, that leads to why so many people are conflicted in their Christian walk.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the choice.
It's the choice.
I have to make a decision.
Right.
Who do I connect myself to?
Right.
And sometimes that means I have to part ways with people that I feel most
Absolutely.
comfortable with
Mhm.
and have spent the most time with.
Right.
But if you're unwilling to separate yourself, you're
Right.
going to stay in stuff that it's just a vicious cycle
Mm-hmm.
of being conflicted inside of your soul.
Yeah.
That decision has to be made. Look, I've got to make the choice that if I want to do this thing, if I want to fulfill the destiny God has for me
Right.
and live for Him, then I'm going to have to separate myself from certain types of communities and get myself plugged in. However, with that being said, it doesn't mean that you don't be around people that don't know Jesus
Yeah.
anymore. That's how you reach the lost. But you
Yeah.
better make sure you're balanced enough to know,
Absolutely.
am I investing in those people that don't know Jesus to download and to show them
Right.
what Jesus is, or are they taking me away from what I'm
Right.
supposed to
Yeah.
be doing?
Which I think if you're connected to the right community, then when you reach out to the ones that do not have a relationship with the Lord, you have a community that is holding you accountable
Right.
and is also
Yeah.
saying, okay, like, we'll do this together. And that has an impact too.
And the whole point of, sorry if I'm talking too much.
You're okay.
I've had a lot of coffee this morning. the whole point of spur each other on is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You have the ability to spur one another on towards
Yes.
anger.
That's true.
You have a point. You can spur one another on towards rage.
Yeah.
You can spur one another on towards negativity. And that's where that choice comes. I want to spur one another on to be better
Yeah.
and to build people up and
Yep.
to
Right.
grow them in their faith.
Love.
Doesn't mean you don't face reality of the moments. You got to speak it what it is. Like, this is where I'm at. But the people, the right communities, like, hey, let's reframe this narrative a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's work through this together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you talked about how just the ebbs and flows of fellowship and how important it is to be connected to community, so that when you are in an ebb season, that you can draw, from the source, and other people can help build you up and help you in those seasons. And when you're in a flow season, then you're in a position to then help somebody else
Right.
that needs to draw from. I loved the example you used with the bank account and depositing. And yeah, you can't consume more than you deposit, or withdraw more than you deposit, because then you're going to end up bankrupt. And I think a lot of people within the church find themselves there because they come to church every Sunday, but they don't connect into the community.
Yep.
And so when there is a need or they are in a low place, they either leave the church or they're trying to draw, but they don't even know where to draw from because they haven't connected
Yeah.
in.
And it can't just be, and that gets into, the church can't be the pastor. It can't
Yes.
just be
Right.
one person.
Right.
It can't just be me,
Yeah.
because I'm one person. I can't, constantly be with everybody all the time.
Yeah.
And that's why the church is the people. You
Right.
draw from one another. You help one another.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm part of that,
Yeah.
but it's got to be about us. It's got to be
Right.
about the people.
Absolutely.
And I find it interesting, too, that in the midst of this guy, whoever it may be, writing Hebrews, he's writing struggling believers who when he's trying to tell them to maintain their faith or how to get perseverance, he tells them to dwell deeply on Jesus. That's where 8 and 9 comes from, but then dwell on others. Dwell on others, you know, because there's something about helping other people that actually gives you a greater perseverance in what you're going through.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I'm telling all my secrets on this. But
Gonna tell what your dad says or what your dad used to say?
No,
not
no,
going there.
I'm going
Okay.
no. Yeah, well, yeah, I probably could, but there are so many times where I'm going into a counseling session or somebody that needs to talk, and I'm like, ugh, it's really hard for me to do this right now because I'm dealing with my own stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I just don't know how much I have to give towards someone else that needs help. But then when I get in the room and I start pouring out to them and encouraging them and helping them and spurring them on and dwelling on helping others, it's amazing how it gives me a greater perseverance of what, for what I'm going through and what I'm facing.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're isolated and alone and disconnected from community, we actually, because that's what our flesh tells us and the world tells us when you're going through something and a difficulty, focus on yourself and your next steps and what you got to do. It only leads to a greater struggle and not to a greater strength. The strength comes when you actually get your eyes off yourself, put it on others, where you get your greatest perseverance out of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much what your dad used to say all the time.
Yep.
When you have a need, go out and fill somebody else's, And that's never left me either. When you're feeling down and out and whatever, going out and helping somebody else or encouraging somebody else actually in turn helps you.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's good. Any other thoughts on spurring on one another?
I think that we have a super unique position that we're in here at Emmanuel Church, especially being on staff. Like, we have put in place, and I think that this is helpful for whatever viewer or listener, finds this, hears this, sees this, but know that we have distinct opportunities here at Emmanuel Church with our staff to spur one another on, because we cannot operate to the level or to the capacity that God has called us to without, exactly like you were saying, Pastor Mark, of spurring one another on and relying and dwelling on others. So starting here at this table, this is an opportunity for us to spur one another on.
Right.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity to say this word, as much as it can be attributed to the congregation, is necessary for us as staff members. We are not exempt from something like
For
this.
sure.
So I just, like, on Monday mornings, we have our prayer meetings together, and we get to hear about, what the Sunday looked like and how we can be praying for one another, one another's ministry, but one another as an individual.
Yeah.
And that's the perfect example of it. So whoever is listening, whoever's seeing this, I hope that you're encouraged that we are just as reliant on people as we are wanting y'all to be as well. And it's it is like a balm for our hearts when we are feeling the struggle or feeling the pain or the weight of ministry. We are putting that into practice as well. So I just want to thank y'all for, doing your due diligence as well and just being here at this table.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's awesome.
Love it.
And I think an important part about it too is spurring one another. It's not like you're going around to every single person in the church and saying, "Oh, you're doing a great job." Like this could be just one person that the Lord highlights in your heart on a Sunday morning. Like you just see them, and Holy Spirit just says, "Hey, go talk to them. Go see how they are." Like, the devil's never gonna tell you to go ask a person a question about like how they are. Like, that is Holy Spirit working in you and highlighting that person, because there's a reason why, right? Because they need to say something, or they have something on their mind, or maybe they just need to see that someone sees them in church, especially in a church of this size, right? It can be so hard to get lost in the crowd, whatever campus you are, or if you're in another state or another country even, and you're watching in, right? It's just that one intentional question that the Holy Spirit drops in your heart, and that in itself is spurring others on. Just
Absolutely.
being that obedient, submissive disciple to the Lord and reaching out to that person. The text, I can't tell you the amount of times that I just get random people that run through my head that I'm like, oh, maybe I should reach out. And and there are times where I don't.
Yeah.
But there are times that I do, and sometimes those people are like, "Dude, thank you for reaching out. Like,
Yeah.
I needed
that.
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
I needed
Mhm.
this. I
Absolutely.
needed this to get through the day, or I've had a rough week, or stuff like that." It's as simple as just finding one person to spur on.
Yeah, and I mean also the discipleship piece. I know that there's different times where I see the need in somebody that they have such a great desire to want to grow in their relationship with the Lord, but have no idea where to even begin, and just taking them alongside you and walking them through that season of life, helping them get started. There's no greater joy than walking together with somebody and helping them grow in the relationship. So even, as you grow in your own faith, looking for people that have, that fire has been set, like they are on fire for the Lord,
Right.
but they don't know where to even begin, and investing time into people. I think that falls under the spur one another on category as well.
Absolutely.
It's good.
So your second point was meet with one another, and you talked about how they had stopped meeting together because of persecution, and it's we're not supposed to stop meeting together. And you talked about how where is it? How we now are more the people that, I'm gonna let you jump in because I'm like, I can see you wanting to go for it.
No,
I'm
I'm
like, I
not.
can't find my part. Okay. And how we have lost our habit of meeting together because of prosperity, not so much persecution. Sorry, I just found it. And I thought that was such a powerful thing. It is so true. It is so true that it's our own prosperity that actually takes us away. We get in the habit of stopping or making it a priority to go to church and gathering in community. But there's the corporate gathering is an important thing. I mean, we see it with the life of Jesus. He gathered with people, but then he also drew away and spent time with the Lord. So both are important, the corporate gathering and the private times. But in regards to the corporate meeting together, what are some of those? Where would you be today without the church and gathering corporately? What do you gain? I mean, we have both of our campus pastors here, campus directors here with us today. So what do you see that happens when we meet together corporately?
I'll let you jump in first. man.
Yeah, I would say first off, you get to know each other. You get to hear each other. You get to understand what's going on in the people around you, in the community around you, and then you're able to spur each other on, right, each week, but also remind each other of the perspective that we need to have when going through tough times and when going through good times. It's so important to be in community, and at a minimum once a week, if not possibly more. Like how important it is to be amongst the body of Christ, wherever you can make it, and it's beautiful to see people like start getting to know each other and get to meet each other, get to spend time with each other, pray with each other, even when it's not an organized thing. It's not a Sunday morning and they just get together, get some coffee, and it's so encouraging, even for me as a director, as a pastor of a campus, to see that amongst the people that I get to see each week, but then I can grab coffee with them and get to hear their story. It also helps me pray for them even better.
Right.
Yeah, and it's really unique in the different communities that we get to serve with Emmanuel Church. I mean, Chrisfield is a very different community than Bethany, as it is a very different community from Salisbury, but we're one church, many locations.
Yeah.
So we all have the same mission, and the fulfillment to a level of that mission is when we meet together and when we gather on Sundays.
Yeah.
Because that is whatever your week has looked like, whatever your month, year, or whatever your life has looked like, coming under the roof to worship one God amongst one body is a way that we can truly see true healing in a lot of people's lives, and that happens when we meet together.
Yeah.
And so I think another incredible aspect of the gathering is that it's generational.
Mm.
And so for Bethany specifically, I love that we practically have, it's like a family service every single Sunday. I mean, we've got kids, we've got adults, we've got grown adults, we've got young adults, we've got youth, like all in the same room together. And it's just always so funny to think, like, who knows, 5-10 years down the road, what this one service is going to leave on that child's life,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and how the habit of meeting together, set as an example by the parents, is going to impact their life down the road. So just the fact that the meeting together, and I didn't grow up in church. I know Pastor Mark is a PK, so
Pew baby.
pew baby.
Pew baby.
But just seeing the lasting effect of seeing people that do grow up in church, it gives me great hope for the kids that we see on a weekly basis,
For
of
sure.
saying, what kind of habits are they setting right now that we
Right.
don't even see?
Don't even see.
Yeah.
And it
That's
happens in the meeting together. So
Yeah.
it's encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And what you get in the church, you're not going to get in the world. The gathering together of people on mission,
Right.
under his mission,
Mhm.
is incredible, the way he designed it for
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The world divides us by our skin color. The world divides us by our political views. Hello.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that here in the
Yeah.
next month or so.
Yeah.
The world divides us on all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And but to see a group of people come together
Yeah.
and love one another, it's just an amazing thing.
Yeah. Well, that's how the world, where our light shines brightest, when we can come together based on all of our differences.
Right.
Mhm.
It is a beautiful thing of meeting together.
One of the I have to
Yep.
share this, and I know we're getting low on time,
We
but the beauty of this that really came to life for me, and I'm surprised you didn't share it,
Oh.
was when we went to Israel. A group of us from the church back in 2018 or so
Yeah.
went to Israel, and we were, I forgot where we were, Shepherd's
We were at
Fields.
the Shepherd's
yeah,
Fields.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So we went to the Shepherd's Fields near Bethlehem, and I guess you could say it's kind of a tourist site now, where a lot of people
It
gather.
is.
And
yeah,
but,
but there's actual caves.
yeah, where the shepherds,
the
ancient caves where the shepherds would sleep or put their sheep and stuff like that. And so we were in one, and while we were there was a group of believers there that were probably on a tour like we were, who were from Latin America. And so while they're in there with us, there was just this holy moment. It was kind of cool, because it was like,
Very
ooh,
cool.
this is like a church,
Yeah.
and we don't know these people, but yet we serve the same God, and we're part of this thing together, and we're in community together.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, they started to sing "Because He Lives," which is, I'm not going to sing it now, which is very rare for me, but this old song they used to sing in the church, and they're singing it in Spanish. And because it was a familiar tune, we obviously knew what it was. So we started singing it in English while they're singing it in Spanish. And it was just like, wow, there was a coming together.
There was a
It
coming together.
And that
Yep.
was the church.
Yep.
This is the church.
Yep.
And they're crying, and we're crying, and we don't know them, and they don't know us, and we don't even speak the same language. But it was almost like, hey, we're in this together.
Yeah.
Like, we're a community. This is the church. This is the body. So this is the greater whole aspect of community, of the church, not just a group of believers in a building or a particular mission, but us as a whole,
Yeah.
worldwide,
Yeah.
Yeah.
of what God is doing in the earth and how he's pulling us together in unity and love so that the world might know who he is.
Right.
It was just an incredible moment
It
that
was.
I'll never,
We'll never forget it.
never forget
It
it.
was, yes, a very marking moment
Wow.
in our spiritual lives, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, before we end, and I'm going to ask Angel to pray us out, but I just was thinking for people that are looking to get connected into community, I just wanted anybody that's listening today, just encourage them to connect into a serve team, to connect into a small group. Our small group semester is coming up starting in September. We'll be promoting that very soon. And those are great ways to start. I don't know if there's any other
I've
other
got
thoughts.
an even more applicable way
Yes.
for church, and this can happen at every
At every
location and
yes.
every campus.
Yeah.
Yes, you need to serve.
Yeah.
Get in a serve team because you're serving others, but there's communities in
That
those serve
community,
teams.
right.
You get to
yes.
know people.
Yep.
You know, get into a small group or a Bible study.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way.
Yeah.
But you can build community just with the people that sit next to you in
Next to
church.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Because we're
Yep.
creatures of habit. You know,
Yeah.
after you go in, you sit down, you coming back the same place next week. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
Yeah.
Right.
And so a lot of people sit in your certain areas that and all you got to do is say, "Hey, how you doing today?"
That's right.
You know, saw you here last week, here you are again. My name is, and tell them your name.
Yep.
And then
And start building
that community starts. You can do that this Sunday by just the people
Yeah.
that sit around you. And if you do that for a few weeks, it's amazing that relationship
That can be
that
established.
can be established.
Yep.
I love it.
All right, Angel. Go ahead and close us out
Let's
today.
do it. Well, Lord, we just thank you for this opportunity that we've had to gather around a table and just spur one another on. And I pray right now for everybody under the sound of our voices, Lord, that you would ignite something in their spirit that would say, I need to spur somebody else on for the works of love and of good works, God. And we know that we are just players in your whole grand plan, and we just thank you that we get this opportunity to be catalysts for life change, and it's only through Jesus that is even possible. So God, would we not give up on meeting together, and would we be reminded today that that is where true strength comes from, and that you would be with us in everything that we do, and even in our gathering together. So we give you today, and we give you everything in Jesus' mighty name, and we all said, Amen.